For my policy, I interviewed Amy Cilimburg, who leads Climate Smart Missoula. Recently, with the support of the Missoula City Council and the County of Missoula, Climate Smart has been able to pass a 100% clean energy bill. This is the policy that Amy and I will be discussing. I wanted to ask you a few questions about the 100% Missoula clean energy bill going on right now. So I was just wondering, why have you started this initiative? Like, how did this come about?
Great. Yeah, good question. So it's the um, the short story, and again, I'm happy to dive into more details. Is we've been part of working towards and trying to figure out some climate solutions since we started. It's why Climate Smart Missoula, the organization I run, exists. Working with different partners, both within local government, businesses, other nonprofits, advocates, to figure out, how do we actually address climate change locally? What are our options? And so a big piece of that, there's sort of two big buckets in that. One is, how do we adapt to climate change that's here and coming? And the other is, how do we reduce our contribution to climate change, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So in that second realm, we've been working on a number of different efforts. Let's get more people to have solar. Let's get people to, do fewer single occupancy vehicle trips, reduce our contribution in the transportation sector, reduce zero waste, all of those different pieces. But it became apparent a few years ago that we really needed to set a goal that we could strive for, to reduce emissions and actually track that number and figure out how we're going to get there. And we decided to focus it on electricity, because when you're dealing with, the actual energy sources of electricity, and then here we have, thermal energy, natural gas, propane, sort of all those. There's a different whole component there, and it was clear that starting with one sector made the most sense, and felt like we could have potentially more influence over that. So we're not ignoring the whole energy field, but we've started with electricity first, in this particular policy. So basically developed a bunch of options, then together with some other advocates in town, decided that we needed a goal, and we needed the city and then the county to commit to that goal, because then it puts the pressure on you to work towards the policy that actually would enable it. And then so we passed a resolution at both the city and county level to work together as quickly as possible to move towards 100% clean electricity. And that resolution was passed in 2019. And what that does is, it's just a resolution, but it puts the onus on local government to work on it, and they ultimately have at least some of the power and some of the abilities to move these things forward in terms of policy.
Who are you working with? Have you worked with business owners, energy companies, anything like that to ensure like more things become clean electric?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And we've worked some with businesses and commercial entities, helping them understand, like, hey, you guys could actually take advantage of this tax credit, if you went solar and did X, Y, or Z. So the things that are available today to residents, commercial enterprises, other nonprofits and things. We've tried to, some of our job at Climate Smart is to do the education and sort of help inspire, because we have a regulated monopoly utility that provides most of the power to most of the people that live in the Missoula area and other major cities. So we are right now in the process of trying to work with Northwestern Energy to get them to offer more, basically to offer more clean electricity, clean energy options, and really intently trying to make sure that they don't just say, well, we'll give you more, sort of we'll just give you the sort of some more clean energy here, so your portfolio will be cleaner, but somebody else's will be dirtier. Like, we're trying to make sure that it's additional, and that's just taking a lot of work and effort. They don't really want to change as a company.
Is there any chance that someone's going to lose out with this?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we don't have the power to force anybody to, like,
Yes.
buy more expensive power or something like that. So even some of the, the city and the county is working on what they're calling an implementation plan with Northwestern Energy to see what new options could come forward. There's one part of that plan that's called a green tariff, which is really just a rate structure that government and businesses and individuals would be able to opt into. So they would be able to decide, hey, I want to sign up for more clean electricity.
Long term and short term, obviously. Short term goals, what are you guys thinking? And long term, are you thinking of like new positions within the county or city level to ensure that like not
So there's a couple different, there's lots of different sort of layers to this. So we're definitely, understanding, energy use is we can't know if we're the trajectory or if it's decreasing unless we understand and have those data. So the city and the county are trying to step up and do more to understand within their local government operations and even beyond. The city has a new staff person within the last year to help manage data and to sort of to understand, to pull that together. I mean, ultimately, we're looking, hopefully going to have a better agreement with Northwestern Energy to share the data that they get, because it's somewhat proprietary, but they can share aggregated data and we're hoping they're more responsive and more regular. We can do that piece. And then we're also looking at some other ideas especially for the built environment of energy disclosure. So requiring larger, commercial businesses to disclose their energy use so that we could help figure out how to drive that down. We have pretty good data in the transportation world, but it's less able to get that information at the building level, commercial level, and also in the waste world of zero waste, but that all contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. So we're trying to build that up. There's a lot of good examples of other cities and states that do a better job than we do, and we're trying to encourage that.
do you have a general timetable for this, or is it just as soon as the city, passes more ordinances and stuff?
It's the city right now. What we have, the original resolution I mentioned that was passed in 2019 had an interim goal of 80% clean electricity by 2025. And so there's some pressure there, but we can only respond to some degree as fast as our utility and or state legislature are willing to go, and they've been dragging their feet. But we're still hoping to make some significant progress in the next couple of years. The final goal was 100% or close. We're not going to fall on our sword over 98, 95, but the idea is to get there, or is to move in that direction more rapidly. That goal 100% is 2030.
One last thing, would you change anything with this policy?
There's nothing dramatic that we can change here, which is frustrating. I think there's maybe more opportunity to bring more people and, like you said, businesses and things on board. Maybe more outreach and education about the needs to go, about why we're heading these directions and things would be helpful. But there's only so many hours in the day, so.
Well, this is going to be shown to our whole class. Would you like to shout out your guys' organization, any ways that people can get into contact with you, things like that?
Sure. Thanks, Nate. Yeah, we're Climate Smart Missoula. And so we're easy to find on the internet, missoulaclimate.org. And, again, just trying to work with folks here and ideally similar groups, like-minded efforts in other communities across the state.
Okay. Personally, my alternative policy in this case would have to be along the same lines as Amy's. The policy has already been passed in 2019, so there would not need to be a change in the strategy to have this bill implemented. I would alter the timetable and move it forward. The city, as well as the county of Missoula, already runs 60% of their electricity from clean sources. I do believe that they could make it to 80% before the 2025 deadline, and then move their 2030 deadline forward. If one was to move the first deadline, though I can see how there could be downfalls, such as energy companies not being willing or able to install that many resources that quickly. Though I do believe that if they were to move the timeline forward 1 to 2 years, the net positives would outweigh the negatives.